For my opposition rebuttal and closing speech, I will begin by running a line-by-line analysis of points raised by my opponent. In my opposition constructive, I stated that international laws are unfeasible because many countries will not adopt such laws, to which he replied, "Whether or not international laws are effective is not relevant to this notion. Some laws are better than none." To this point I concede. Some laws are better than none in terms of protecting microbial spacelife. However, the harms that would arise from affirming the resolution and putting these laws into place are simply not justified, namely the inevitable decrease in space exploration and research. And my opponent has yet to demonstrate how justification exists. In response to my point regarding the benefits of the privatization of space travel, my opponent stated that the Outer Space Treaty says that space is for all countries and all humans, and that private industries can exploit space for their own profit. By asserting this point, my opponent has refuted his own argument. Yes, the Outer Space Treaty does say that space is for all countries. That's a reason why all countries should be able to explore space. He went on to say that affirming the resolution would not limit space travel, and that we should simply explore space with ethics and morals. On the contrary, space exploration would certainly be halted. The resolution states that we should have an overriding ethical obligation to protect and preserve microbial spacelife. Let's take a look at this terminology. An overriding ethical obligation. This means that any activities that could even potentially harm spacelife should not be pursued, and in fact outlawed altogether. Pursuing this further, let's consider the fact that every single time we launch an object into space, whether it be a satellite, rocket, what have you, we risk destabilizing and harming space ecosystems. There's a plethora of research that establishes this point, and I've linked to these articles in the description section of this video. This evidence proves that not only would space travel have to be limited by affirming the resolution, it could potentially be banned altogether. This is something my opponent is not prepared to defend and seems to nullify the remainder of his argument, as his entire argument hinges around space still being readily available for exploration, and yet by affirming the resolution, the opposite becomes true. He has not offered any sort of counterplan by which exploration would still be allowed, therefore this point is to be disregarded. Furthermore, my opponent stated that private industries have the ability to exploit space for profit. However, he has yet to establish why exploring and mining space is an endeavor not worth pursuing, or even how these actions qualify as exploitation. He has not offered a response addressing my constructive question, why is microbial spacelife worthy of protection? At this point, it is clear that the scientific progress gained by exploring space, as well as the economic benefits gained from mineral farming, outweigh the possible damage done to space microbes in the process. My opponent also briefly mentioned the lack of resources on Earth, but never rebutted my point that space resources will help in this regard. There were also several points in my constructive argument in which my opponent neglected to acknowledge. Among these are, number 1, if a treaty like this were to exist, no punishments could be distributed to those nations who went against the treaty, as there is no international body capable of transnational punishments. 2. As soon as one country went against the treaty, other countries would do the same. 3. The economic benefits of mining space minerals. 4. The scientific progress regained from exploring space. 5. My question regarding the removal of satellites and telescopes in space. And number 6. My counter-argument to his claim about alien life, in which I asserted the search for this life would be halted by affirming the resolution. Judge, if my opponent attempts to address these questions in his closing speech, please disregard them, as no new information is permitted to be brought up during the closing speech. Furthermore, I would not get the chance to respond to new points he brings up, as this is my final speech. This would clearly be an unfair advantage for him. Also keep in mind that not a single citation or source was included in my opponent's arguments, whereas I linked to several. The evidence for my argument is clearly in my favor, and we can regard any points my opponent has raised as pure speculation and conjecture. The desire of humanity to continually discover our origins is an endeavor we shan't terminate, for to do so would mean ending what is perhaps our very purpose in being here: perpetual progress, the prospering of our species, and of course, learning. By affirming the resolution, we put a monkey wrench in the engine that is human progress and negate our ability to expand our horizons and traverse the cosmos. Judge, as humans in this constant struggle for knowledge, we both have an outstanding ethical obligation to find the answers to the big questions in life. How did we get here? Why are we here? And where are we going? It is only by voting in opposition to the resolution that these questions can be answered, questions in which you likely ponder late at night, as we all do. These questions that keep you awake and demand the truth cry out for an answer. Let us do just that. Let me end with a quote by André Gide, French author. Man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore. Thank you, competitor and judge.